So first of all, how is the curriculum written? I think I've answered this already today. Curriculum is written by educators. The same people that implement curriculum are the actual people that write the curriculum. These are the people that are the most proficient in the curriculum as well as the standards. And, one of the other misnomers is, well, why do we write curriculum? Well, there are a number of different reasons, and that is mostly because standards change. And in this particular topic, this particular curriculum, the standards changed. And we were required by the Department of Education to get our educators together that teach those standards so that they could go ahead and revise our curriculum so that those standards were addressed appropriately within that curriculum. And I have to tell you, and this was led by Ms. Badami, our supervisor of physical education. She did an extraordinary job of integrating, or working with our teachers, I should say, to integrate those standards into our curriculum in the most appropriate, and I'll say that again, age-appropriate manner for each grade level in that physical education and health curriculum that was noted before. Can you explain to parents, is the Board of Education responsible for writing curriculum? Well, Board of Education members are not. However, the Board of Education is responsible for making sure that the school district goes ahead and revises or adopts curricula based upon the standards. If you look at board ethics, the two things that a Board of Education is most responsible for is policy making and curriculum improvement. And that's why we make sure that if we're going to revise or create a policy, it's the Board of Education that goes ahead and approves that and adopts it. Same thing with curriculum. However, with this particular curriculum, because it was such a controversial topic at the time, and people that are here might recall it, and people that are listening at home or watching at home might recall it, before our Board of Education approved any of these grade levels that we did, and we did them in different grade level bunches, I personally sent an email out to the entire community to share that curriculum with the entire community. And I have to tell you, only about 5 parents, I really think it might have been a little bit less, 5 parents commented back to me on the curriculum. And I sent it through a broadcast email to the entire community. And that was grades kindergarten through 12th grade. Prior to every board meeting where we asked the board to adopt that curricula, we sent it out. I sent it out personally to the entire community. Is all the district curriculum on the Sayreville website? Yes, it is. And if you ever have any questions about where to find the curriculum, email me, or more importantly, email Ms. Grossman or Mr. Glock-Malloy, and they will direct you to that area, but I believe it's right on the curriculum and instruction page of our website. Correct, Ms. Grossman?
Yeah, they just go to SayrevilleK12.net. They go to departments, select curriculum and instruction, scroll down about 2 paragraphs, and there is a link that will open up public access folders to OnCourse. It is probably about 95% of our guides. The ones that aren't there are currently being worked on, so because they are a work in progress. But all of the health guides are on that website and have been since.
Next question was, what right do parents have over the teaching of this health curriculum? Well, first of all, you have the right to be our partners in the education of your children, to get involved and support your child through any of the curriculum that we are implementing or teaching your children. We recognize that as a partnership between the home and school, that's how we're going to create the greatest outcomes. And many of our parents work hand in hand with our teachers in implementing and teaching the language arts curriculums, the math curriculums, the science curriculums, as well as the health curriculums. However, parents also have the right to opt out of this particular curriculum. In fact, this is the only curriculum that a parent can actually opt out of, and that's something that is required by the Department of Education, and we have no intention of stopping that. However, I will say this, I probably could count on one hand the number of parents that have opted out of that curriculum. Once they read it, they recognize that whatever it is they're reading on Facebook or any other social media outlet, it's not true. And they also realize, too, that just because the standards say one thing, it doesn't mean that the curriculum is actually going to state that explicitly. Again, I give great credit to the extraordinary teachers and, of course, Ms. Madami, who facilitated the writing of that curriculum, to do it in such an age-appropriate manner. There is law that states that we have to do these things. The policy is created to help our staff follow the law. So if we were to revise or even rescind this policy, we would still be obligated to follow the law, and more importantly, held liable if we violate or do not comply with that law. So I think that's one thing that people really need to understand about any policy, particularly that policy. It's being said that the policy keeps parents out of the conversation regarding issues of sexual orientation and gender identity. Can you tell me how many times since the policy was enacted, many, many years ago, by the way, a parent has been kept out of a conversation about a student's sexual orientation or gender identity? First of all, if you take the time to read the policy, nowhere in the policy does it state that staff members cannot tell parents about students who are having questions about their gender identity or expression. The only thing the policy states is that, first and foremost, the policy is created to align with the law so that no child in our district is faced with a hostile learning environment. And that includes children who have gender, identity, or expression questions. So, you cannot create a hostile environment for a student of a different race, a student of a different religion, a student of a different gender, and this policy says you can't also do it for students with gender, identity, or expression questions. But nowhere in the policy, nor in the law, does it state that staff members cannot tell parents. In fact, if you read the policy, it states that that does happen. However, it does state in the policy that in some cases in which reporting to a parent might result in that child doing harm to themselves, staff members don't have a duty to tell the parent. As I've been superintendent here for my 11th year, I do not have a single case in which we have not communicated with our parents. And thankfully, we have not had a case in which communicating with a parent with regard to this topic might result in a child doing harm to themselves. However, if you dive deeper into the law and why that is in the law, it's because the alarming rate of suicide of students, school-age students, who have gender identity or expression questions or issues, and they do not have a safe place to discuss them with a responsible adult. The biggest misconceptions of that policy is that it's saying that staff members cannot talk to parents, and that's false. Of that policy is that it's saying that staff members cannot talk to parents, and that's false. I just got finished saying how extraordinary our elementary school teachers communicate with our parents. I also just got finished saying that if we want to ensure the best outcomes of our students, the home and the school have to work together as a partnership. Withholding information will lead to mistrust. And I think all of our teachers, all of our counselors, all of our child study team members, all of our therapists, all of our staff do an exceptional job of communicating at all times with our parents. And there's nowhere in that policy that it states that they shouldn't or they can't. All it states, again, is if a staff member feels that a child is going to do harm to themselves, if something regarding that child's gender, identity, or expression is communicated to the parents, the staff member does not have a duty. They are not required to report that to the parent.
Law that protects those children does not change. It's still in play, no matter if we rescind it, revise it, whatever. The New Jersey statute, those laws that protect transgender children are still in effect.
Yes, and in my opinion, revising or rescinding that policy would be putting us on a course for disaster, because you would be sending the message to our staff that they don't have to follow that law, and that will ultimately lead to the violation of that law and the liability. And heaven forbid it's not a child taking their life or harming themselves that will come with that.
And that's a law that's been around since, I think, the
2006.
the LGBTQ plus part of the anti-discrimination law in New Jersey went into effect in 2006.
Yeah,
So this is a law that's been around for almost 20 years.
yes.
And because of misinformation now, we have people that are calling for policies that they know nothing about to be taken away.
It appears so.
Well, not happening with this board member.
And it's not happening with the superintendent.
We also have that program where we have that, thanks to Mr. Glock McCloy, that if kids Google how to commit suicide or how to harm themselves, our computer system identifies that, right?
Absolutely. In fact, Ms. Sokola and Mr. Nasser are all over that. We get what are called beacon alerts. And I sometimes don't think that Ms. Sokola sleeps at all, because she's basically answering these things at all hours of the day, as is Mr. Nasser. And of recollection, the two of them probably saved up to 5 or 6 students' lives last year. One student was actually in the act of harming themselves, and they actually made the call to the police, who arrived at the student's house and intervened. But yeah, we do get those alerts, and our administrators and our counselors are monitoring them, and some, the ones I just mentioned, are monitoring them at all times during the day.
I also want to state that I had heard that in a few of those cases, not every one, but a few of them, the parents really didn't, even though you're telling them, hey, your child, it may be trying to commit suicide, they're writing or looking up information on how to commit suicide, the parent did not have any interest in your involvement in alerting them to that. Is that true?
Sadly, that's not only correct, it went further than that. The parents were, in many ways, very aggressively and sometimes nasty toward us when we were calling them, alerting them that, we just saw a search. Your child just searched suicide hotline. The level of disdain that we would receive from them when we would call them, and listen, no one wants to make that call to a parent, but people, there were some, not many, that were very unpleasant and not pleased with us calling them to report this to them.
And the fact that any parent, even one parent, would not be interested if their children is considering killing themselves is unbelievable. And I think that's what the public, parents in Sayreville need to understand is you may be a good parent, you may have your child's confidence, your kid might come to you with everything. But there are other parents out there where that's not true. So that's why our board policies are very important, okay? Whether you're for transgender kids or you're against them, it doesn't matter. This protection needs to stay in place.
But I would also like to say, just latching on to what we've been discussing, anyone, and several of us have, who has spent time as a teacher in a classroom knows that you love every kid most of the time. I think in my years of teaching, I won't tell you how many, I could count on one hand the kids that I had trouble with. But again, I taught art. No, I never had Pat. I was there after him. It was a different environment. I taught art, so I walked around and I spoke to the kids. We had conversations. Monday mornings, I would put my fingers in my ears and say, no, 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 too much information. I don't need to know what you did over the weekend. But they wanted to share. They wanted to be part of an adult, I think, because some of them didn't have that. And I know I shouldn't tell the story, but I do. There was the one young man who would come in every morning and say, Miss, where's my morning hug? And I would give it to him because he obviously didn't get it at home. And we're still friends on Facebook, and he's married with children. But I think people forget that we are people. Just because we're sitting here on the board doesn't mean that we don't have children, we don't have families. We understand all of this. And we are here to do the best that we can. And you all know I'm a glutton for punishment because I've been here forever. But that's why we do it, to make a difference. So I thank everybody for their input tonight. And I think it's time to close. Shall we close?